So, I am recording this video one day after what I thought was going to be a pretty big day. Um, for those of you who don't know, I've just been living under a rock for a long time. As you can also kind of tell by my own little wall of fame here behind me, if the camera would focus, but oh well. Um, I'm I'm a pretty big fanatic when it comes to mascots. I have been now for pretty much over 3 decades. Like the first one I ever saw on TV, I was like 8 years old, third grade. And seeing that kind of inspired me to not only make it a mission to meet that mascot and eventually meet many more down the road, but just become a fanatic of them and a passionate supporter of them as much as I could and supporting their craft. And dare I may say, it may have led me to becoming a furry. Um, so it was supposed to be a great day yesterday. It was supposed to be an exciting day because the Mascot Hall of Fame was going to induct its 2026 mascot class. And for over 2 weeks, I had been voting like crazy. Um, I had been, pushing hard for my favorites to get into the hall. I had really been, hoping that they would get in. And, but the thing of it is, like, for me, I'm not considering I work so late during the day. Like, I'm not really like a big morning person. I used to be when I was working morning shifts, but ever since I got switched to evening shifts when I worked, um, I really I haven't really been a morning person. And Good Morning America, which was the show that we are going to put the announcement on of the Hall of Fame class, airs at like 7 in the morning. So I knew that I had to like DVR the show. And usually, when I know what they did last year too, is like they always put the uh, block of the announcement to like the very last like portion of the show. Like it's very like last part of the show. And so last year was really exciting because three of the mascots that I voted for got into the hall. That being Blitz, Sharky, and Toro, who you can also see on the wall behind me. Blitz is right. If I can put my finger there. Sharky is right above him, and Toro is right there. There we go. So obviously they're in my personal wall because all three of them have left a big impact on me in their own unique ways. That's what those mascots are on the wall behind me. That's my own personal wall of fame for those who've left a big impact on my life. Um, but I was so happy that they got in last year, and so I was looking forward to seeing who was going to get in this year. And I woke up at about 10 o'clock that Friday morning, and I was getting ready to watch the show. And obviously, I had to like hold the remote down and fast forward until it got to the point where they're talking about the mascots. But this one was a little bit different. This one was a little bit different. Um, Now, granted, at the end, it was a nice thing because, again, three of the five that I voted for did get in again, especially being Mrs. Met, the first female mascot ever, got inducted, which was awesome, along with Goldie and Miles, who I voted for. And then Cosmo and Cocky got in as well. So that was all well and good. That was nice. It's nice to see, the voting that I do and the effort that I make and all that get some of my favorite mascots in the mascot hall. That's awesome. But that's not the main subject of this video, is it? You can see by the title. That's not the main point of this. This is because that this Good Morning America episode is very, very different because it had another segment, mascot related, before the announcement of the 2026 class. And I'm thinking, okay, this is definitely interesting. Piques my interest a little bit. And they were doing like a GMA game day thing. They were doing like something like that, and they were doing something at the Tennessee Titans stadium, and they were having like a game day thing with getting everybody. They had the crowd in the background behind the host, and da 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 da. And then I hear them say this before the segment starts. I hear them say, "Oh, and we'll give you a first look at T-Rac's new glow up." And I was like, "Excuse me? Like what now? Like, wait, hold everything. Like what? Like, okay, hold up. T-Rac, like, okay, full disclosure. Full disclosure before I even go into this, because the rant is coming, okay? And I've been ranting about this. If y'all have seen my social media, Blue Sky, Instagram, over the past couple days, you know that I've been going on a rant on this. And I wasn't going to make a video on this because I felt like the rants on those two sites were sufficient enough. Oh no. I need to have a video discussing my thoughts on this. I'm not a Titans fan. Okay, I'm really not. I'm again, I'm just a passionate mascot fanatic, but I'm also a fan of like nostalgia and tradition. And if something works, it shouldn't be messed with. If it's not broke, don't fix it. And I know that the Titans were going through this whole rebrand, redo kind of thing with with the logo and the helmet and all that, and that's fine. That they really didn't change the color scheme all that much, except they got rid of the red, I think. But that's fine. The helmets aren't bad, whatever. But then I hear that and I think, oh no, like if y'all messed with T-Rac, that's where I'm gonna throw a fit. Like I'm gonna throw a fit. I will say this. Like in my NFL mascot rankings, my personal rankings, they're always fluid. They're always changing based on what goes on throughout an NFL season, et cetera, et cetera. T-Rac was like, he wasn't in the elite tier of my personal rankings. Like I have 12 mascots in my elite tier of the NFL. That's a good chunk. That's a good chunk of the league, right? There's 32 teams in the NFL. Granted, 4 teams don't have mascots, so it's like 12 out of the 28 are elite in my opinion. That's almost half. That's pretty good. But T-Rac to me was like right at the cusp. Like he was like at the top of my second tier. I liked T-Rac, but he just wasn't quite up in like that upper echelon of mascots. But I liked T-Rac because he had character, he had kind of a swag about him, he had personality. Like he had so many different outfits that he was rocking. He driving on the car, on the carts in the car. Like that was cool. That the smoke and the entrance in the games, that was sweet. So I think one time he had like that completely like fur colored car. That was awesome. It was all covered. That was cool. Like T-Rac had his own level of swag that I respected, and not to mention, raccoons can kind of be seen in the real world as like tricksters and pranksters, and they go through your garbage and whatnot. And I think the Titans really kind of leaned into that when they first introduced him in August of 1999. Yes, 27 years ago, they kind of leaned into that because the tongue sticking out. That was like oh, that's what makes T-Rac T-Rac. Just kind of like like nah, 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 nah. That was like his whole thing. Like I liked that about T-Rac. So that definitely caught my attention when they mentioned that before this segment on this at this GMA game day at Nissan Stadium. And of course Nissan Stadium is going to have its last season this year as well, because Titans are getting a new stadium as well, because Titans are doing mostly everything new. This whole we're all new now, complete rebrand, everything. We're all new, but T-Rac so far had avoided that. And I was thinking, okay, maybe he's going to be the one thing that survives this rebrand. It's going to be the one thing they're going to keep because it's 27 years, it's tradition, it's a well-established character, that has been around this franchise from the very beginning. Why would you touch something like that? Why would you, change it at this point? Why would you mess with that? Well, that's because the Tennessee Titans don't give a fuck. They don't. They really don't. Okay, I think now we've established that the Tennessee Titans just do not give a crap what their fans think. They really don't. Because I got to be honest. So they go to the segment. They go to this segment and they show the crowd's there and the host is there, and then we got the first look at the Tennessee Titans mascot's new glow up, and I'm like, oh dear God, if they ruin him, I'm just gonna be completely devastated. And sure enough, they talk about, and of course the intro, of course, they preface with, oh, he's been so mischievous and so beloved and so great for 27 years as the Titans mascot. T-Rac's been just so beloved by everyone in Tennessee. And then there comes this thing walking. It's like, we got the first look for the kids club, the Rack Pack. I feel the worst for them, by the way. The first look at the new T-Rac, and immediately they show him, and they show the video that they posted with the transformation, and the old T-Rac steps into that circle with the light logo on it, and he steps in, and it goes that, and the new one comes up, and I kid you not, the first words out of my mouth as I'm sitting up in bed at 10:20 in the morning on a Friday were, what the fuck? What did you do? What did y'all do? If y'all haven't seen what they did, I will be happy to show you. But be warned. There you go. There is the new version of a mascot that was beloved for 27 years. Allegedly by GMA. I had to pause the video that I was watching. I had to pause the DVR. And I just sat up in my bed in stunned silence. And I'm pretty sure my heart shattered a little bit inside. Just a little bit. Not full. Again, it couldn't have been fully smashed because, again, not a Titans fan. But just more for, like, the nostalgic mascot fan community. Like, that was my heart, just, a little bit cracked, a little bit shattered, not fully. But still, like, what are y'all doing? Like, this, like, and immediately going through my mind, it's like, this isn't it. This isn't it. Like, I get that rebrands happen, and I get that, you want to make changes, and that's, there's nothing inherently wrong with that on its own. But when you make the decision that you want to change something that's been well established after 27 years of having such a positive impact on your team and your community, like, that's just a kick in the fan base's nads. Like, that's what it is. I'm sorry, but that's what it is. I'm being real. Like, Like, I don't know any other way to put it. And granted, maybe it was better that that segment aired before they announced the 2026 Mascot Hall class, because that at least, I guess, eliminated some of the sting of that news. But it didn't take it all away. This thing that the Titans have put out as their new mascot. First off, I'm not calling it by that name. It can wear that jersey all it wants. It can say that it's that name. I'm not calling it by that. No. Gross. I'm not doing it. To me, the OG will always be T-Rac in my heart. I'm calling that version T-WACK. That I was really thinking of a few like alternate names like last night, as I was going through, and I thought, okay, what about like like T-Rac, or some people, a lot of people were calling it Temu-Rac on social media because of just how it how the costume looks, or but no, I felt like T-Wack made T-Wack made too much sense, so I'm gonna go with that to call the new version. Um, but that that looks like just so generic. Like it's so basic. It has no personality whatsoever. You completely stripped the personality from the original. I mean, now I'll say that like the color change, okay, the color change I don't mind. Okay, like the one thing I really don't mind about it is the color change. I'm fine with them changing the color. Like, you know what I mean? Like going from the brown to the gray. I don't mind the color change because I think because that certainly aligns more with with the rebrand and the colors the Titans have, going with the with the silver and the blue. That's okay. That's more their thing. Um, by the way, some of you might notice, why are we wearing a North Carolina shirt? Well, it's the closest thing I own wearing to Titan blue. I wanted to wear something Titans related to this video. I don't own anything like that, of course. So this is what you get. It's the closest thing I got. Um, but but it's like it's so bad. It's just it's so basic. It just to me it just has no personality whatsoever. It it looks like to me like the first thoughts that came to my mind. Like here were the first three thoughts that came to my mind. Okay, one, it's a mashup of like Sly Cooper. If y'all know video gaming in the PlayStation, you know that Sly Cooper is a big video game franchise. It looks like that mashed with the Rocket City Trash Pandas baseball team mascot, which is in that area, by the way, Sprocket. Like if they mash the two together, just combine them somehow. You put Sly, in a big old like blender. You have Sly Cooper in there, you put Sprocket in there, and mash them all together. You get this T-WACK, this new version. My second thought. This looks like they went to the nearest furry convention in Nashville, Tennessee, and it was near the end of the convention and it's closing. The vendors are all wrapping up, and some of the vendors are taking out all their stuff that they either didn't sell, or they're throwing out the stuff that they couldn't sell. And the Tennessee Titans were out, representatives, the PR team, or Amy Adams Strunk was out walking outside the nearest furry convention, and they go, look over there. There's a gray raccoon costume in the dump over there. Hey, can we use that and stick it in a football uniform? Cool, thanks, bye. Am I not wrong? That's what it looks like. You took the cheapest bargain bin dumpster thing you could find from a furry convention and said, Hell, hey, look, well, sorry, Titans fans, this is your new mascot now. That's what it looks like. I'm not fronting. Like this is that's to me what it reminded me of. The third thought that came to my mind, and this is more personal to me because the, you know whether it be T-Rac or T-WACK, this is not the first raccoon mascot that I have seen out in the world. For those again of you that don't really know my channel that well, or some of you that do, when I was growing up, a big part of my life was a little amusement park that recently got saved that's still going called Indiana Beach. And they are now, I think, in their 100th year or something like that, which is crazy to think that they wouldn't have even gotten to that had that closing actually happened, had it not been saved. But yeah, T-Rac or this new thing was not the first raccoon mascot I was ever really involved in or actually meeting and seeing in my life. Because at this this amusement park that I was growing up in part of my childhood, they had they have a couple different mascots there. Of course, IB Crow is the well known one, and later they added like the horse, like the Cornball Express roller coaster guy, that kind of thing. They added him as well, but they had a third one because they had the Rockies Rapids log flume ride. Still do. It's still there. It still operates. It's still a very popular attraction. Basically, it's this where you ride this little log like a lazy river kind of thing, and then you climb up this really steep incline. You're going up and up and up, and then essentially you go shoom, straight down into the water. Very pretty popular ride at most amusement parks. And their mascot is a raccoon named Rocky, and I saw that, and I thought to myself, oh my gosh, it's a kind of like a thinner, slimmer down version of Rocky Raccoon, because Rocky Raccoon at the park was a little bit chubbier, if you know what I mean. But like head wise, face wise, yeah, looked exactly like Rocky Raccoon from the Indiana Beach amusement park ride. So that's what this looks like. That's what T-WACK looks like here. That's it's like some mashup of just throwing any raccoon you want into a blender, or a bargain bin Temu discount furry convention suit costume, or a childhood amusement park character you meet at a log flume ride after you go down the freaking slide. That's what this is. It's I can't take it seriously. Like I can't take it seriously anymore as your team mascot. I can't do it. In good faith, I cannot do it. And I know there's gonna be, people that go, oh well, there's so many new mascot introductions at first that people first they hate them and then eventually they love them. What about Gritty? I mean, yeah, like, yeah, sure, okay. That's a fine example. Like, yeah, Gritty got a lot of hate at first because it was, the hot new thing. It was getting a lot of attention. But then Gritty eventually just got so popular that people forgot even the fact that we hated him. Like, he just after those first initial days, like he just like burst in popularity, and we kind of forgot that, like, wait, we actually hated that thing for a while. Like, and Gritty did grow on me. Like, I was not a fan of Gritty at first either. I'll openly admit I was not a fan of Gritty at first either. But eventually, the more I saw and the more I learned about the creative process behind it, and eventually I met Gritty, I kind of understood why he was so beloved. But y'all, I don't know if I can love this. I really don't. Uh this one stings. It, like I said, it doesn't fully hurt because I don't really have the Titan fan backing to really be like like torches and pitchforks. But it stings because again, like I said, I'm a proponent of, like, if something isn't broken, why are you trying to fix it? And again, I understand it's part of the rebrand. And I think maybe a lot of us thought that T-Rac was going to survive the rebrand, but clearly no. The ownership and the organizations made it clear, and the PR people made it clear that, nope, this is not your grandfather's Tennessee Titans anymore. This is a whole new thing. We're going in a whole new direction. We're not holding on to anything in the past. This is completely and utterly new. You're not going to recognize this anymore. This is completely new. Um so it frustrates me. Like, it 13 years ago Iowa did the same thing. Like, 13 years ago, 2013, Iowa did the same thing. For the longest time, I really loved Turkey the Hawk at Iowa. Like, I thought that he was one of the best mascots in the Big Ten. Like, I really legit thought he was one of the best. And then they finally decided to give him an awful makeover the next year, and I just completely, just now. Granted, I still like Iowa's football program. I still support them. Um, but I am not a fan of Herky anymore. I really can't be after the makeover they gave him. Because once again they took something that was fine, was pure, and they decided, nope, we're gonna change it just because we can. And of course people at first absolutely hated it. They were not a fan of the change. Um, and there was even, and I'm still in a Facebook group that wants the old version brought back, but that really didn't really go anywhere. I'm sure they got a lot of mail and comments and whatnot, but eventually probably died off after like a few weeks. So I, it blows my mind. You got to understand, it blows my mind when you have an established character that is so beloved for 27 years, ever since the beginning, and you decide to just say, no, F tradition, throw it out the window, it's gone, you're not going to see it again, forget about it, you know, we're done with all that, we're doing something new, you don't have to like it, but we don't care, you know. But I can think of two examples that come to my mind of fans showing that they really do care about their team mascot and about what it represents. And the organization took a step back and actually said, whoa, okay, we were in the wrong. We screwed up. We need to fix this. Let us go back a couple years. Let's first do an NBA example. Let's talk about the New Orleans Pelicans. Remember when they were bringing out their mascot, and we got our first look at Pierre the Pelican, right? And holy cow, was that thing a night terror? There are people saying it was scarier than the freaking cake baby. With that oversized beak of his and the open mouth, and it looked like it wanted to eat your children. It was pretty scary, and a lot of parents let the organization know about it. This, I'm pretty sure some of the comments, if I recall correctly, said I would not want to take my kid to a Pelicans game to see this thing. I would not do it. And And the backlash was just so strong from the fan base that just did not approve of this, that the organization took a step back and said, huh, okay, you know, Pierre's gonna, be away from the team for a while, because you gotta like play it into like, okay, we're gonna make a change, but we gotta do it in kind of a, you know, reality show kind of way, because you want to play it for the entertainment factor. They'd be like, oh yeah, Pierre's gonna be away from the team for a while. He's gonna get some reconstructive surgery. Uh-huh. Which meant I think that big scary beak is gonna go away. So then they put out pictures on their social media of, with his beak, that beak all wrapped up in mummy style tape, whatever, and then a few games later, they finally unveiled, had the little video with it, with the doctors and everything, and they unveiled the new look. And the fans went, "Yay! It's so much better!" And everything was right with the world in New Orleans, at least for the Pelicans. The fans made their voices heard. The team listened to those fans, to those complaints. They may have even hit them where it hurts in their wallets. I don't know if Pelicans attendance went down after that original announcement, but if it did, I'm sure it had an impact. And the team fixed the issue. Give you another prime example. The NHL, which in my humble opinion has the best collection of mascots as a whole. Like, don't get me wrong, like NFL mascots as a whole, pretty strong. MLB has a really good, I think, top level group, and then it's kind of mushy in the middle. NBA, I'd say probably about half are elite, and the rest are eh. NHL to me has probably one of the strongest groups of mascots as a whole, in my humble opinion. But there have been some moments where, things have happened with the mascots, and the teams have had really to make a tough decision on how they want to approach things going forward, right? You know, this is where you have to separate like the performer from the character. That's how I want to describe this, really, because really three examples, come to mind when it comes to the NHL. Um, but this is where you have to separate again performer from character. Y'all know that I am, if you see my social media, or if you see the bobblehead in the background, if I can move out the way, hang on, I move this way. See my bobblehead collection way over here? Yeah, there you go. It's right here. See Thunderbug right there? Yeah, there's Thunderbug. He's the mascot of the Tampa Bay Lightning, right? I love Thunderbug. I always have. He's the big reason I became a Tampa Bay Lightning fan, and he has been nothing but kind and nice to me every time we've interacted. And on social media, he's great. He puts out a lot of good content. He is truly one of the best. I just got to see him shoot earlier this year at Blues Birthday Bash in Indy. He's great, but uh, I'm sure many of y'all know if you follow mascots a lot that Thunderbug's original performer, Kelly Frank, she kind of had an infamous incident that eventually led to her getting fired from that job as being Thunderbug. This was back in early 90s, like late 90s. Like this was in the early years of Thunderbug. Back when the Lightning I think had just changed their like design, like they like from their in the early like like it was early, I think like maybe late 90s early 2000s, but they like just changed their look and updated it, and so they were more like the blue and white that we see today. They did like the black uniforms for a while, but then they changed that. So but it might be more like late 2000 now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah, because they were the blue and white then, and then like they were, because in '04 when they won the cup, they were the black uniforms, and then they changed it to the blue and whites we know today. Anyway, um, but yeah, Kelly Frank was Thunderbug back in the day, and there was that incident where she was in the crowd and she's interacting with this Boston Bruins fan, kind of giving her grief, and there's they're going back and forth, and then she sprays the Bruins fan with silly string. Now, silly string is a common prop that that mascots use to because mascots at heart, most of them are pranksters. They're allowed to be a little, a little joke, to fans. If it doesn't go, if anybody get hurt, it's fine, you know, you know, but get silly string. Well, the Bruins fan clearly took exception to that. He didn't like it, and so he decides to shove Thunderbug down, and of course gets an immediate reaction from the home crowd in Tampa, and the fan just kind of gets in Thunderbug's face. He's having a full on argument with the mascot, and eventually the fan gets kicked out. The fan gets kicked out, and Thunderbug goes like this like he's crying whatever, and that was all all well and good. But behind the scenes, we later found out that that was kind of the last straw for Kelly. It wasn't the only reason why she got fired as Thunderbug. It was just kind of like the last the last moment. They had other reasons why they were firing her from the job, but that was kind of like the last straw. Like, you're not gonna embarrass us anymore. We can't have things like this. It's not a good look for the character or the team. Um, but it wasn't a reason to end the character, right? It wasn't, this was more of an indictment on the performer than the character. Now, for Kelly Frank, in the end, things kind of worked out because she went on to actually, she now owns her own mascot design company and has done that for, she's like numerous clients that she works for. So, you know, good for her. I'm very thrilled that she is doing that now, and she's doing a great job at it from what I've read. Um, so it all worked out for Kelly. But then you have to think, okay, how do we move forward from this? Well, I think it's safe to say that I'm glad that Thunderbug stuck around after that, and they the team still kept the character and kept him going, and it that wasn't really an indictment of the character, much as so as the performer in this case. So the character stayed, and Thunderbug, I think, now is as amazing as ever. Again, that's kind of I know that's kind of my bias showing, but again, his content's outstanding. He does so much on social media. He's great with the fans. He's beloved. What can you say? So that's one example. Again, performer, character, separates that. Um, but the other one that I can think of, the one that comes to mind though, is the Cardo Avalanche. So Bernie the Saint Bernard has not always been the mascot for the Avalanche. It may seem that way considering he's been with the team so long, but he was not the original one. There was when the team was first came up with, and once they moved from Quebec in 1996, 95 or 96, one of the two. They actually had a mascot named Howler the Yeti. And I kind of liked Howler because, he had a very unique design. He had a unique look. He rocked the full uniform, which I'm always a big fan of. If y'all know me on social media, I'm a big proponent of that. Um, and just looked really like a solid character overall. But there was a pretty well documented, publicized incident that happened where Howler definitely did some inappropriate things to fans. And even the performer himself admitted that that was the reason that Howler was eventually axed. They took full responsibility for it. and it was some pretty bad heavy stuff. I think there's like full articles out there of it on online about what happened. Um, but I don't want to get too delving into the details of that or the next story I'm going to tell you about too. But yeah, it was not pretty. It definitely is not a pretty story. So so again, the Avalanche had to make a decision. They were like, you know, that this certainly is not a great look for our organization. We don't want, you know, our fans to, you know, see what this mascot slash performer did, and we don't want them to have this look of our team in this light. But here they really couldn't separate the performer from the character. You know, here this was more of a situation where it was just, you know, and we don't even know if it was in suit when he did what he did or not. I don't know all the details of it. I just know a little bit of information. But clearly the Avalanche were like, no, we can't keep this, you know, this character going. We have to move in a different direction. We can't keep Howler. We can't keep this mascot. It's too bad. It's too egregious. We just no. We just need to go in a different direction. And so they came up with Bernie, and Bernie's been beloved now by fans, and it's a good pick for them because the history with St. Bernards and Avalanches, it makes sense. It ties into the team, and he's a pretty decent mascot, all things considered. So that in that case, they really couldn't separate the performer from the character because it was just too, I guess, egregious a situation for them to continue with Howler. But then there's the instance that comes to mind of probably like to me at least in recent history, the strongest case of fan outcry to a mascot makeover and the team finally realizing, wait, we need to get this right. We you know, we can't, you know, we've screwed up. We need to get this right. We need to make sure that, you know, the fans, you know, are, you know, are not going to just leave us because of this. We need to get this right. The Los Angeles Kings had their amazing run a few years, winning two Stanley Cups in 2012 and 2014. And Bailey, their mascot, their lion mascot, he's been around for a really long time. Like he's been around for a long while. You know, even as far back as like I think the 90s. Like he's been the mascot for a long time for the Kings. But also for a long time, the same guy was in the suit, and that guy's name was Tim Smith. And he was the mascot when they won the Stanley Cups, and he was, you know, and I became a Kings fan, you know, because of Bailey. You know, and it's weird how that kind of happened because for you know, a while I was a Sharks fan first, and I really, you know, the Kings were the big rivals, and so naturally I really didn't like Bailey all that much. Not to mention that Bailey had a bit of an edge on social media. Tim Smith is the character. He really kind of put a, let's say, sass into Bailey. And there would be numerous instances of both fans and celebrities getting into it with Bailey on social media. But I later found out that it's better to be on Bailey's good side than his bad one. We did have a little bit of a Twitter war back in the before I became a Kings fan. But I quickly realized that it was a lost cause. It wasn't the way to go. And I just felt like, you know what, it's probably better to, you know, just support the team and be on Bailey's good side than be his rival. And I think we definitely reconciled that in 2016 when I went to Nashville at the NHL All Star Weekend. And I told him, you know, how much I now supported him and followed him on social media and all that good stuff. Um, but there came a time when Tim Smith really abused his privileges. And again, I use that word exclusively, privilege. Yes, being a professional mascot is a job, but it's not something that you take advantage of. Um, which Tim Smith unfortunately did in the wrong way. Um, because numerous members of the King's Ice Crew came out and basically said that Bailey was exhibiting some, or Tim Smith, whether in or out of suit, we don't know, was exhibiting some naughty, nasty behavior to them and some other employees of the Los Angeles Kings. And so it quickly became apparent, including these people also were filing lawsuits against the Kings and Tim Smith. It quickly became apparent that this man could no longer work for this organization. Um, So the Kings at first the Kings just put him on a leave. Like they put him on a brief leave because they were conducting their own internal investigation, which I guess is standard protocol. You know, for any time allegations surface or anything, you want to do your own investigation first to make sure that the allegations are credible and legit. It's a shame that there are so many phony allegations out there in the world of things, but you want to make sure that they're credible. But clearly they were, because they kept on piling up, and eventually the Kings really were left with little choice but to terminate Tim Smith. They really had no choice. It was just too many instances of just him taking advantage of the position that he was in. Like he saw himself as like bigger than anyone else in the organization. Like he felt like the rest of that organization was just beneath him. And it was so disgusting when I read the reports. Like it really was awful. Like it made me briefly really, reconsider, being a Kings fan. Like I really wondered if I wanted to stay with the team, because I honestly thought, no joke, I thought the team was legitimately going to get rid of Bailey. Like I thought this stuff coming out is, and clearly it's true, is so bad, is so egregious, that like I really really thought that they were going to just scrap the character, like what Colorado did to Howard the Yeti. I thought the Kings were going to look at this and go, nope, this is tainted. It's we know it's already tainted the performer, but it's clearly tainted the character to an extent that we cannot continue using this character. Like I really thought that was going to happen here. This was I'm sure, a tough decision for King's staff to make, whether or not to continue using Bailey as their mascot. Like I am sure the internal discussions were definitely intense. Like I would have not wanted to have been in that room. Like it would have been very difficult for me even to really ponder the pros and cons of that decision. Like it would have been very very difficult for me. Because I really didn't know whether or not that Bailey would be coming back. But thankfully, the year after this happened, Bailey did come back. So clearly the Kings felt like, what, we're not, this was more of a fact where an individual, being our mascot, thought that he was bigger than the organization. He took advantage of the position that he was in. He did some naughty, nasty things, and he alone is out of this position. He no longer works for the Los Angeles Kings. He no longer can be with our organization. He is the one at fault. We don't think that what he did damaged the reputation of the character enough. We feel like the character itself is too beloved, we can save the character. We can keep the character going because we know the fans like Bailey, the character, more than the person that does it. You know, the character is beloved. The character, the personality, that's what makes Bailey more so. And yes, the performers do get a little bit of freedom in the fact that they can, they're usually the voice on social media. Some of them do have their own social media coordinators, but for the most part, it's the performer themselves that controls the social media, that gives the character their personality aspects and what have you. But here, the Kings really felt like, no, this individual alone does not we do not think portrays the mascot the way that most fans view him. So we're going to keep Bailey. But what the Kings tried to do is they tried to, I guess, how do I want to explain this? They tried to still give Bailey that little bit of like an edge, but they completely changed his overall design. And it took them a while before they got this right. So I don't know if I could find any pictures on social media of the old versions, or what's out there on because they did like 3 different versions of this before they finally got it right. So let me see if I can find any of them. Granted, obviously there's a lot of the version that they finally got right. Yeah, I may not be able to find any, at least not off the top, of my head. Well, anyway, let's just say it took the Kings three different attempts to try and get this right. So like the first version they did, it was completely and utterly different, right? It was the bottom half really wasn't too much different. He still had that, he still has his tail, he still has the big oversized shoes, he still has the full uni, but the head was all wrong. The head was just completely and utterly wrong. The mane was different. Like his hair was shorter. Like it didn't have the long mane you think of with a lion. His face was like kind of like edgy. It was kind of like a little bit edgier. Like they still wanted to give him like that bit of like edge and sass, but it wasn't the same. It didn't have the same look that fans always knew and loved. And so that Bailey goes out and about during the off season and interacts with fans, and I think made it in for like a couple months of the season. But clearly, the fans are like, this isn't it. This is not the Bailey that we know and love. This isn't the character we're used to seeing. No, this totally is not what we signed up for. Like this ain't it. And so the Kings quickly realized that, and again, maybe they were being, maybe they were getting a lot of mail or attendance was going down, whatever. And the Kings quickly realized, okay, all right, we made an attempt to fix it. We screwed up. We were in the wrong. We admit it. We're gonna make a change. And so again, they hyped it up, kind of like what the Pelicans did with Pierre. They kind of hyped this up like a little promotional video, like, oh, our mascot Bailey is going on the IR to have some head surgery. You got to play it up like, oh, okay, they're gonna try to fix this. So yeah, they're gonna try to fix it to get it right. And even Bailey was on like Sports Center, like with his head all wrapped up in tape. Like it was a big thing. Like it was you couldn't see in the studio. It was funny. It was a fun little bit. But you knew what was coming down the road. They were going to eventually, try and fix it. Now I think I did see a picture on here of them doing that unveiling of the second look that they tried with Bailey. Um, yeah. So this was when they finally revealed the 2.0 version. So all the area mascots showed up. Here, I'll do it this way. So there you go. So there's when they did the unveiling of the. Come on, camera, focus. But that's when they did the unveiling of the new version of Bailey. If I can, wish the camera would focus. But so yeah, so they did pull out the tape. There we go. So they pull out the tape off, and they unveil the second attempt for Bailey, and it's a little bit closer, and it's definitely an improvement over the angry short mane first version. It was definitely an improvement from that. So we're getting a little bit closer to what the actual version that the fans know and love should look like. So we're getting there. We're getting very, very close. But that was not it either. The fans were like, okay, we're still getting there. We're getting closer to being there. But and I think that version was around for like a couple seasons. And the fans are still like, we're getting there, but it's still not quite what we want. What we want. It's not quite there yet. And then finally, I think around like 2023, 2024, after really COVID was over and that came and gone and came and passed, the Kings said, okay, we're going to try this one more time. We want to do right by our fans. We want to get this right. We want to show them that we can bring out the Bailey that they all know and love, and we want to finally get it right. And eventually, we finally got the version that really we know and love. There we go. And finally, it looks very much like the Bailey that we knew back in the day. Granted, not exactly the same, but pretty darn close to the original version. So if you want to compare it to the here was the original. There's the original Bailey. So I think the mane is a little bit thicker. The feature is a little bit thicker on the original version, but still pretty darn close. A little bit happier in the face, but for the most part, it's pretty much close to the original, the original thing. So I've been happy with it, but again, the Pierre example and the Bailey thing are two prime examples of fans speaking up and speaking out and either using their voices strong on social media or hitting them in the wallets and saying, we don't agree with this. This isn't right. This doesn't look good. It's not good for me. It's not good for our kids. It's not good for future generations of fans. It's not good. It needs to be fixed. And y'all, I obviously, when I saw this announcement with the Titans, I went straight to the comments on Instagram, on Reddit, Titan bloggers, Titan videos on YouTube from, podcasters. And I gotta say, it's probably either a 90-10 or 95-5 dislike, hatred for this new version of, that I'm calling T-WACK. Uh, it, it's 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 just it's just so bad. Like I can't justify. I can't put that into words enough. Just what a terrible decision this is by the organization. But I did see a few of the commenters, especially on Instagram, that were saying things like, the hashtag not my T-Rac was starting to trend. I hopped in on that on Instagram. And I loved seeing that. There were a few Titans fans who said that they were season ticket holders. They didn't say how long they've been STHs, but they were season ticket holders. I emphasize the word were because they were canceling their season tickets over this. Good. Hallelujah. Preach it, people. Kudos to them. Because if you want your team to make a change back to the way it was and they change something and you don't agree with it, hit them where it hurts. Right in the wallet. Right in the wallet. Right in the gosh darn wallet. I saw that. I'm like, yes. Good. Tell them that you don't agree with this. Tell them. Not just tell them, but then do something like that. Tell them you're not renewing your season ticket. Good. Because that's lost revenue for them. That's lost revenue for them. Unless someone else fills the seat. But, so yeah, it opens up a spot for somebody else. But, like, that's not guaranteed. No guarantee that's going to be the case. Not in this economy. It's 2026. Have you seen prices and stuff these days? Through the roof. The ceiling is the roof. Not anymore. Might not even be a floor. But good. There were some even saying that we're boycotting the free scrimmage that the team is doing tonight. Hallelujah. Let them know. Let them know. And you know what? They might not care now. The Titans have clearly shown over the years that they make these head-scratching, questionable decisions where really they could give a you-know-what's out of their butt about how the fans feel. They clearly have shown that they really don't care. And I said as much earlier. You know, they've clearly, I think, made that a thing that they really, they're gonna do what they're gonna do, and they they could really give two shits. They really don't care. But as I mentioned in the two examples, if you speak out hard enough, if you hit them where it hurts in the wallet, if the attendance at games starts to go down, some might think, oh well, it definitely, isn't great because of course the Titans haven't been winning and relevant for years, and that's true. Yeah, when the team sucks, these decisions, yeah, they look even worse because the team hasn't been relevant for crap since what, the game, the 1 yard short in 2000. Like that's pretty much the last. The really, aside from that, the Music City Miracle. That's the best memories I really know of the Titans. I'm sorry. So and the brief time that Derrick Henry was there and Eddie George. That's really, that's really what I've got from them. But you gotta let them know. You gotta at least let them know. They're not gonna change anything if they don't, see that there's a reason to be upset. You know what I mean? Like if clearly I can only imagine. I can only imagine the amount of mail and comments and stuff that the ownership and the PR department of the Titans are receiving. I bet they've gotten tons of it over the last few days. I guarantee it. Guarantee it. And I'm sure they see all the comments on social media, mine included. I'm sure they see that. But the question is, do they care enough about their fan base to actually look in the mirror and go, oh shit, y'all, you know what, guys? We might actually screw this one up. We might have actually we might actually touch something that we really weren't supposed to do. We totally messed this one up, guys. We need to go back to the drawing board and do something different to make our fan base happy. Isn't that what it's about at the end of the day? Like, yeah, sometimes winning does cure all, but like, if your team hasn't been relevant in decades, like, what do the fans have to cling onto to hope for the Titans? Like, really? Like, yeah, you've got a young team, or with Cam Ward and now Carnell Tate and Pollard's still there, and like there's okay, there's pieces to be excited for and hopeful for, but like aside from that, what else is there? Like, you guys have been mostly the laughing stock, one of the laughing stocks in the NFL, right there with the Browns, the Jets, now the Cardinals, the Dolphins. Now it's like we know who the bottom teams are going to be in the NFL, and the Titans are going to be right in that mix again until they figure out how to have a competent team on the field. Yes. But it's all the other off the field stuff that you're doing, these decisions that you're making. And some of them are hitting. Yay, that's great. But clearly with this one, it hasn't hit. This is not a hit. Like, the artists are like, oh yeah, we got hit songs after hit songs, and everything's groovy. It's like, we're all in this together, and you're pumping out hit after hit after hit. Okay, we're gonna have the new logo, and fans say, okay, that's good, and we got a new color scheme, and we're gonna use the old Oilers colors. Okay, that's fine, as long as you don't change too much there, and we're gonna give you a new stadium, and how exciting is that? We won't have any flooding issues anymore. Okay, that's cool, that's fine. Oh yeah, we're completely turning their mascot into a furry. What? Yeah, that last one I don't think is a hit song, guys. So I guess now it's up to the Titans fan base, right? It's up to them to let their voices be heard and hit them in their wallets. Again, the people that are canceling their season tickets, boycotting the scrimmage. Like, there are folks that are willing to stand up and say no to a part of this rebrand that they don't like, that they don't appreciate, that they don't care for. They just don't see this as the next step. They just don't see it. Like, they didn't, they felt like T-Rac was maybe the one thing that they weren't going to change. Like, he was going to survive the rebrand of this team. Like, you're changing everything else, and I've heard the podcasters mention this too. They've mentioned, you've changed everything else. New logo, new helmets, new uniforms, new stadium. Surely, though, after 27 years of being a vested, character with his own identity and his own personality, and he's beloved in the community and does great things in the community and is great with the fans, all that he does, surely you are not going to touch that and just take a big giant dump on 27 years of mascot history. But that's what they just did. That's exactly what they just did. And now, the decision really rests with the Titans staff and the PR people and the ownership. Is it going to get to a point where this backlash just finally hits home with them and says, oh, clearly this is something they don't agree with. Clearly this is something that they don't appreciate. Clearly this is something we didn't hit the dartboard on this one. We hit bullseyes with other stuff, but this one we had too much to drink and we just threw a wild dart into the air and it missed the board completely and nearly took out that guy sitting at the bar. Like this is just a wild swing and a miss from the Titans organization, and it needs to be fixed, in my opinion, and among the opinions of many commenters that I've seen. It clearly needs to be fixed, but the more important question, though, is are they going to acknowledge that and actually do something about it? Personally, I don't think they're going to. I think they're well ingrained in their ways. I think that, once they decided that a rebrand had to happen with everything, I feel like they were going to check off all the boxes and really not leave any stone unturned. I feel like they were just going to completely, ditch the past entirely, and they were just going to leave it at that, and this is the way it is now. In their mind, they're doing the right thing and they're completely starting over. And like I said, this is not your grandfather's Tennessee Titans. This is something new. We're forging a new identity, and no matter how you feel about it, you're not standing in our way. But that mentality can certainly turn off and alienate a fan base. And honestly, in my opinion, I feel like this decision has really alienated a good chunk of the fan base. I really feel like it's been a turnoff for a good chunk of it. Now there's still going to be the loyalists that are around who could really give two craps about the mascot. They just want to see winning football, but it's going to be still an uphill battle for the Titans on that. So again, they're really just it's really going to be just the loyal fans that are there because it's their team and they're just so dedicated and loyal, that are going to stick with this and not really give a care about it. Or there's going to be the new generations that just say, hey, we're here, it's my team, I like the way it looks, I like the rebrand, I'm picking that team because of that. This is more is a just a shot to, like I said, to all the people that grew up with the Titans organization and the older fans and the nostalgic factor and everything like that. This is a punch to their nads. This was their last vestige of hope. Like, they had changed everything else about the team, and the team had the audacity. Again, this really was like a double punch to the nads. Like, the team had the audacity when they released the new uniforms. I think this was in March when they announced the new uniforms for the team, that they put T-Rac in the new uniforms, and he even posted it on his Instagram. And you could see there are pictures of T-Rac, the OG T-Rac, in the new uniforms. only for that to last just a few months. March, April, May, June, July to now. 6 months. That version of T-Rac only got to enjoy the new look Titans for 6 months. What a slap in the face. What a punch to the nads. So, I know I've gone on for a while, but the bottom line is this. If you really care about how the Titans are starting to market themselves, if you are really passionate about this team, if you are tired of people making changes just because they can, if you think that a mascot that had 27 years of history and character and personality doesn't deserve to be changed like this, then let your voice be heard. Let them know. Hit them in the wallets. Let them know that you do not approve of this decision. And at the end of the day, it may not do anything. It may not change their minds. They may be set in their ways. It may not do much. But they won't know unless you try. They won't know unless you put your voice out there. Because one voice can really start anything, really. But sometimes the backlash can be so strong, and the value that they lose can make an impact on them, that they do take a look in the mirror and realize that we can't afford to lose a part of the fan base that we just lost. We need to do everything in our power to fix this and make this right. Shoot, there was even a concept on Reddit that I really liked, and I did a little, edit to it myself. But again, I mentioned early in the video how I didn't mind the team changing T-Rac's color from brown to gray. I didn't mind that. I just didn't like everything else. But you could have kept the head. You could have kept the head. Look at this. There's a gray version of T-Rac with the same head. Now that I would have been okay with. Because again, you still have the iconic character with that quirky personality, with the tongue sticking out, the little prankster. That's still cool. Now, I did a little bit of editing to this myself. And that if you're gonna change the mascot as a whole, because again, I'm a proponent again of doing the full uni. I don't mind T-Rac mostly being, all fur. I guess, some mascots can do the furry legs and pull it off. That's fine. I liked Rampage from the Rams better when he wore the full uni. He switched back to the fur, but I've kind of gotten used to that. But even T-Rac in the full uni. Look at that. Look at that. Now that would have even been cool. I would have been fine with that too. If you're gonna change him up, maybe put him in the full uni. That would have been awesome. I would have been totally fine with that. But no, instead, we got diet, discount, bargain bin, Temu, furry convention, T-WACK. And this is the last thing I'm going to show. I know I need to wrap this up because I've been ranting for too long. But like I said, the original T-Rac design will always be T-Rac to me. I I just can't acknowledge that new version. I can't. I just can't. Because to me, it's not T-Rac. It's not the version that Titans fans knew and loved, and that I liked for so long. So I also kind of had this little wallpaper created. Um, it's T-Rac standing at the 50-yard line at the middle of Nissan Stadium with a spotlight on him, and he's got his, he's in the new look uni amazingly, and he's got his paws over his heart, and the sign on the scoreboard in the background says, "Thanks for the memories, T-Rac." And that's my phone wallpaper at the moment. I even made a collage um, up on my desktop right now with some pictures of T-Rac through the years, including the one that means the most to me. I did have the privilege of meeting T-Rac um, when he came to Carmel, Indiana, near not too about an hour from me. Um, in 20, I want to say 17 or 18. I think it was 18. Um, where the NFL mascot summit was being held there, and they played the mascots played the Pee Wee kids, local Pee Wee kids in the league, in a game for charity. And down after the game, we got to go down the field and interact with all the mascots and whatnot. And luckily, I was able to get I gotten a picture with T-Rac the year prior, but it was with Poe, the Ravens mascot at the time. He was kind of like T-Rac was kind of like lurking in the background. We didn't really get a solo picture together then. Um, but after the game, I caught T-Rac and I said, hey, I'd love to get a solo picture with you. And T-Rac was more than happy to do that. Um, I'll go ahead and show you guys real quick the picture that I got with T-Rac here. There we go. There I am with T-Rac on the field there in Carmel. Love that it's just his arms around my shoulder like that and just giving that thumbs up. That was just so cool. So thank you all for listening to this. Like I said, I wasn't originally going to post a video on this because I felt like my social media posts really told how I felt, but the more I've thought about the past few days and the more I'm seeing about it, I just feel like I had to put my thoughts out there. So you know, so thanks for listening to it. But thanks for the memories, T-Rac.